If you get your reader asking questions from the beginning, you'll keep them turning the pages. Hey guys, I'm Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. If writing workshops and traditional publishing talk are your thing, please consider subscribing. So, let's talk about beginnings. The first chapter of your novel is arguably the most important part. Obviously, it's the first thing that people, agents, editors, bookstore browsers are going to read. And what they read on that first page is going to determine whether or not they keep reading or if they close the book. But even more importantly, that first chapter is your springboard. You're finding the voice, setting up the world, getting to know this protagonist and his needs and wants, and getting him ready for the conflict that's going to drive both of you through this journey together. It's a lot. That's why, although I do advise that you write your first draft as fast as you can, I know I don't feel ready to dive into a first draft until that first chapter feels right. So once again, I'm using The Magic Words by Cheryl Klein in this lesson. This book has a whole chapter devoted to first chapters. And while the whole chapter is well worth a read, as is the book, see my description for a link, at the end of the chapter, Klein boils all of it down to one sentence that is honestly the best advice I've ever heard for writing a great first chapter. Write your first chapter like you're performing a striptease, not going to a nude beach. So what exactly does she mean by this? Authors, especially first-time authors, and I am 100% guilty of doing this, have a tendency to feel so much eagerness and excitement over this world we've built and this plot and this story and these characters that we try to cram it all into those opening pages. And in effect, we kind of give everything away. Klein, in her book, actually provides a really great, and by great I mean awful, example of this. "Illyria, I heard my mother call as I fled into the woods. I threw back my head and screamed, 'Leave me alone!' I hate her," I whined to myself. "She was such a harpy. Ever since my stepfather, Cleve Lorraine, became High Telodron of Columbra, she had been begging me to stumble into his arch-enemy, the beautiful Teludrux Sindaton, and step on her foot with my deadly poisonous left pinky toe. I knew my real father would never ask me to do anything so degrading. If only my mother would tell me who he was." This is an example that Klein made up, not an excerpt from an actual novel, so I don't think it's rude to say this opening is a mess. It's too much. It attempts to start off with action and dialogue and conflict, which is advice authors often get regarding how to write a great opening chapter. But in less than 100 words, we get information overload. There's this fantasy world and its politics, the missing father and the fact that the protagonist doesn't know who he is, her apparently magical pinky toe, and a few too many names of people, positions, and places that are hard to pronounce and therefore hard to keep in our heads. This is not a striptease. This is a full-on nudist colony. The irony here is that this type of opening is a result of an author wanting to show the reader all of her research, all of her world building, all of the work she did developing this story, all of the cool elements that the reader gets to look forward to as she reads this book. Why is that ironic? Because it actually reveals a lack of authority. The most important thing about a first chapter isn't that you start with action or dialogue or conflict or a pithy insight. It's that the reader immediately senses that you, the author, are in complete control of the story. Whether we consciously realize it or not, when we, as readers, crack open a book and read those opening pages, this is what we're responding to when we decide whether or not we're going to keep going. Authority. When we read an opening scene that shows authority, we relax. We trust the author and we slip right into this world in this story they've created. Want some examples? No problem. Klein lists 4 elements as being key to a great first chapter: credibility, a distinctive tone, a tease, and a compelling character. Let's start with credibility. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. There's a reason this is one of the most beloved opening lines in literature. It resonates with readers whether we agree with it or not. It makes us laugh. It has a very distinct voice. It establishes the book's narrative tone of ironic amusement. And most importantly, it flawlessly sets up all of the themes the novel is going to explore about society and individual choice. Jane Austen has credibility. Who knew? A distinctive tone. My name is India Opal Bologna, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store for a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes, and I came back with a dog. Because of Winn-Dixie is a middle grade classic for many reasons, and one of those is its spot-on voice. As Klein puts it, the sentence structure and straightforward way the main character introduces herself to the reader and launches into the story without preamble establishes the wholesome goodness of the story. A tease. Lyra and her demon moved through the darkening hall, taking care to keep to one side, out of sight of the kitchen. When I read the first book in the His Dark Materials trilogy over a decade ago, I knew absolutely nothing about the story or the world. I vividly remember reading that first line and going, "Demon? What's a demon?" I had no idea, but I sure did keep on reading to find out. You know what's better than telling your readers about your world in your first chapter? Getting them to ask questions about your world. If you get your reader asking questions from the beginning, you'll keep them turning the pages. A compelling character. They say I was born with a caul, a skin netting covering my face like a glove. My mother died birthing me. I would have died too if Mama Yaya hadn't sliced the bloody membrane from my face. I let out a wail when she parted the caul, letting in first air, first light. This viscerally descriptive opening is from Ninth Ward, and it gives us not only a vivid image of the protagonist and what makes her unique, it also offers a little bit of foreshadowing into the specific struggles she's going to be facing later on in the book. What makes your character unusual or unique? That might make a really great opening line. However you choose to start your first chapter, imagine you're filming the scene and you've got the camera zoomed in on this one detail, this one element. The rest of your chapter is slowly, tantalizingly zooming out, letting the reader see a little more and a little more as you build toward that inciting event and your story gets off the ground and running. Here's your workshop exercise for today. Take a look at the first chapter of a book you're working on and ask yourself this. What questions does your reader have at the end of the first sentence? What questions does your reader have at the end of the first page? What questions does your reader have at the end of the first chapter? These might be questions about the world, the plot, the protagonist, it doesn't matter. But if you can't think of any questions your reader might be asking at each of those stages, chances are you've got a nude beach beginning. And if that's the case, it's time to decide what specifically you want to zoom in on for the beginning of your book and what you can hint at but save for later reveals. That's it for this workshop, and hey, if you've got a question or a topic that you'd like to see me cover in a future workshop video, please let me know in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, of course, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button. I hope you guys have a great week. I will see you Friday with another vlog, and until then, keep writing.